I wanted to do 15 and 16 together, like actually writing the equation of an ellipse, because your performance task focuses on ellipses. So if I'm finding an equation, I like to plot out everything that they're giving me. So it has foci at these 2 points, so I would plot those, and a minor axis length of 4. So I'm going to plot that information in order to help myself write the equation. So I'm going to plot 2 comma 1 because that's a focus, and I'm going to plot 2 comma negative 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I think already you can see that the ellipse is oriented vertically, and you know the C value, and you can figure out where the center of the ellipse is. So this is number 15 on the next page. So I can find my center. So my center would be halfway. So what's that total distance? 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4 would be my center. So I already know that my center is at 2 comma negative 3. I know that my C value is 4, and I can figure out the rest of this ellipse. So when you're writing the equation, if you know the center, I just go ahead and write out the framework for my equation, because I know if the center is at 2 comma negative 3, it's going to be x minus 2 squared over something plus y plus 3 squared over something equals 1. So then you have the framework ready for yourself for once you find A and B, or A and B, whichever way it goes. So as soon as I find the center, I write out the framework for my ellipse with the center as part of it. So now I need to figure out the rest of this. I know it's going vertically, and it tells me that the minor axis has a length of 4. So if the total length of the minor axis is 4, that tells me that B by itself has to be 2, right? Because it's 2 units in either direction from the center. So I know C is 4, and I know B is 2. So I can put B squared on my equation if I want. It's going to be x minus 2 squared over 4, right? Because B is 2, so 2 squared is 4. Now I just need to solve for A. And I know the equation is A squared equals B squared plus C squared for an ellipse. So I don't know A squared, but I know that B squared is 4, and C squared would have to be 16, because we said that C was 4 originally. So it looks like A squared is 20. And in my equation, I just care what A squared is, right? So y plus 3 squared over 20. So my final equation, x minus 2 squared over 4 plus y plus 3 squared over 20 equals 1. Make sure you don't forget the plus sign. Make sure you've got squareds on the outside of those parentheses. So that's a lot of work putting it together backwards from just some information. All right, number 16, the equation of this ellipse has a center at the origin. Okay, so center's at the origin this time. It tells you the eccentricity, and it tells you it has a vertical major axis of length 6. So I know that this is a vertical ellipse, right, going this way. So I should be able to frame out my equation. It's just going to be x squared plus y squared equals 1, because center is at the origin. It had a vertical major axis, so that tells me my A value is going under the y, vertical. If its length is 6, A by itself would just be 3. So 9 is going to go under the y squared. I just need to figure out this piece over here. I need to figure out the B value. They've told me the eccentricity. So remember, eccentricity is C divided by A. We know that A is 3, right? So 2 root 2 has to be C. If this is C divided by A, we already know that A is 3, C has to be 2 root 2. So we're going to again use A squared equals B squared plus C squared. We know that A is 9. We don't know B. What would C squared be? It'd be 2 times 2 we have to do 2 root 2 times 2 root 2. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 would be 8. Is everyone with me on how I multiplied 2 root 2 times 2 root 2? The 2 times the 2 is the 4. The root 2 times the root 2 is just 2, and then 4 times 2 is 8. So it looks like b squared would just be 1, right? Because it just subtract 8 to the other side. I need b squared for my equation. So x squared over 1 plus y squared over 9 equals 1. All right, in a minute, I'm going to have you try 17 by yourself because that's an ellipse, and 20 by yourself because that's a circle. But I'd like to do 18 together because that's a hyperbola. So in case you need some help on hyperbolas. So I can't divide through by 9, so I'm going to have to group together my like things. 9x squared minus 36x minus y squared minus 6y equals negative 18 would be my first step. So your second step is to factor out the 9. So 9x squared minus 4x. And over on this part of the equation, you're actually going to factor out the negative 1 coefficient. So negative y squared plus 6y. See how if I factor out a negative sign, that becomes a positive 6y? With hyperbolas, you always put the negative thing second. So I knew to put the x's first and then the y's. If the x's had been negative, you'd have to flip the order of this equation. So let's see, I'm adding 4 inside this parenthesis. So I really need to add 9 times 4, add 36 to the other side. And I would add 9 inside this parenthesis. So negative 1 times 9 is, I'm actually subtracting 9 on the other side of the equation. So I'd have 9. This would be x minus 2 squared minus y plus 3 squared equals, is that 9? 36 minus 18 minus 9 is 9. And then your last step is you have to divide through by 9 to get 1 on this side, just like for an ellipse. So x minus 2 squared over 1 minus y plus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. So now we're going to graph this hyperbola. So it's got a center at 2, so right 2, down 3. So I'm going to plot 2, 3 on my graph. So right 2, down 3 is the center of the hyperbola. I know that this is a horizontal hyperbola because x is coming first, and the square root of 1 is 1. So the vertices are very close to the center. Those are my 2 vertices. I'm just putting V's there to remember. I have to go 3 in the vertical direction. 1, 2, 3, put a dot. 1, 2, 3, put a dot. Box that in, because that's the framework for your asymptotes. Your asymptotes go through the diagonals of that rectangle, and then you can draw in your hyperbola. So really, the only part on this whole graph that's your actual hyperbola are these 2 purple curves right here. Everything else is just the framework. The 2 purple curves is the whole hyperbola. And if you wanted to write the asymptotes in point slope form, let's see, they have a slope of up 3 over 1. So if I use the original equation to help me, it would be y plus 3 equals plus or minus a slope of 3, x minus 2. Those are the equations of the asymptotes. So just good to review point slope form. So you're going to go back here at the end of class and try 17. So the last one I want to do together is the parabola one, just because we haven't done many parabolas. So look, take a look at 19, and then you're going to do 17 and 20 to wrap it up here. So to get this in standard form, we're going to leave the x minus 1 squared on the left, and we're going to subtract the 8y and the 16 to the other side. So you want this to be the squared thing and all the other stuff to go on the other side. And then you have to factor out your 4p value. So I'm actually going to factor out a negative 8. So I get y plus 2 left in the parentheses. So now it's in standard form of a parabola that I can graph. X is being squared, and the p-value is going to be negative. So this is actually going to be an upside down parabola. So just thinking ahead, I'm trying to graph an upside down parabola. So I graph my vertex, right 1, down 2. Right 1, down 2 is my vertex. So it's going to open upside down from there. 4p is equal to negative 8. So p by itself is negative 2. So if I go over here, the focus will be inside and the directrix will be outside. So down 2 is my focus, and up 2 is going to be my directrix. So the directrix is at y equals 0. And then the last thing to graph a parabola, the 8 is the total focal width. So from the focus, the width of the parabola is a total distance of 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4 units, 1, 2, 3, 4 units on either side of the focus, so that the total focal width opening is 8. And I think somehow focal width is used in camera lens technology or lingo. So you think about the focal width. For some reason, I always think camera. So that is graphing a parabola. So I'd like you to take a few minutes on your own to try 17 and 20, and then I'll put up the answers in a minute, or ask me if you need help. Focus. I'm unpausing. Okay, so I got x plus 2 squared over 4 plus y minus 3 squared over 9 equals 1. So left 2, up 3, and it had 2 in this direction, 3 in this direction, and so it was a vertical ellipse. Does that look like what people got? If not, I can come and kind of troubleshoot at your desk maybe. And then this was my 20. So it had a center at 2, negative 4, and the radius was 5. Circle.